My name is Pastor John, and I'm the pastor of the Burien Church, and I'm here with Michelle, my wife and co-minister, and Joyce Olson. And together we'd like to share with you an experience of God's healing and a miracle story of how God rushed in at a time when we were all searching for a miracle. Joyce has a story to tell, and we'll do our part to fill in where it's appropriate.
Saturday, January 28th, 2017 started out as just a normal day for my husband and me. We hopped in the car, went to the restaurant where we like to have breakfast, and by the time we got there, I was feeling a little bit thick-headed. And that's unusual for me. I normally don't have headaches or really feel dense, or in that sense, I'm not thick-headed. But one of the clues was that Alan said to me when we got there, "You do realize you ran 2 stoplights on the way to the restaurant?" And I said, "Me?" I said, "We take that route every morning. I know that road so well." And as we got there and we're sitting there, I forgot how to order my breakfast. Things got denser and I felt a little bit of numbness, and my husband had had a stroke a year and a half before then. I began to think these could be stroke-like symptoms, and I just didn't feel any better. And I went into an unintelligible state of speech to where nobody could understand me, and that is the last thing I remember for almost 22 hours.
I received a call from Joyce's husband, Alan, around 10:30 that morning, and he told me, he said, Joyce has been taken to the hospital by ambulance, and we think that she has suffered a stroke. We came into Joyce's room and found her, we were shocked to find her in a state of
Go ahead.
in a combative state. She was in soft restraints. She seemed fairly incoherent. It was quite clear that she had suffered a severe experience.
And we looked at each other, and John said, he said, "We need to prepare ourselves." In her eyes, she was not in there. She didn't know us. She didn't know anyone. The nurse told me that the only intelligible thing that they heard from her was the word, which we know was a name, Jesus. The emergency room doctor, even though they hadn't run all the tests that they wanted to run, he said that it looked like she had had a stroke in a little spot in her temple area that was causing the mental breakdown. I don't know, it was probably about 10 o'clock at night we left, and she was still not in there. I prayed all night long, and then, woke up, and I jumped out of bed because it was Sunday morning and we had responsibilities at the church, and I jumped out of bed to get John to say, "Let's go to the hospital and see how Joyce is." Only when I got up, he wasn't around. And so I called him to find out he was on the way to the hospital.
I had a fitful night as well, and several times I woke up praying. I know many people were praying.
Yes.
Many people were praying. We activated the church board and called the church board to prayer. And twice I said something almost in passing without thinking about it, but I didn't realize that I was really speaking the faith that I was speaking. And once was to the board, where I reminded them that joy comes in the morning. Joy comes in the morning. And that night, when we left the hospital, we went to the Olson home to visit with Alan. And the last thing I said to Alan was, "We'll wait and see what the morning brings." And I had no idea what I was really saying. And I walked into Joyce's room, and I came around the curtain. She's in the second bed. I came around the curtain, and she looks up at me with a big smile and says, "Well, good morning." and I just stood there. I just didn't even know what to say. I was just so flabbergasted and so thrilled and so excited and so happy, and it was all at once. And as I said later, one of the things that came to my mind was that verse in Scripture where Jesus and the Gadarene demoniac, and it's that tremendous verse that says, "And there he sat, clothed in his right mind in the morning." There he sat, clothed and in his right mind. And here she is, and she's perfectly normal. And I was so, praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
She was not in there, and then she was back. And sometimes it's hard to explain something so amazing unless you were there. But if you would have sat with her for those 22 hours and then saw her completely back, and we know that God does miracles, we believe in them, we've seen them, but every time he does one, it's shocking. And it was shocking.
There was Pastor John. And then just breaking into this big grin. It was just amazing. I thought I had just been put in the hospital because the last I remembered was the fireman. And complete recall of everything, no memory issues. The doctor said, wow, they took me for CT scan, and then he said, I'm toying with the idea of not even doing the MRI because there's nothing wrong with you. He said, I'm not sending you to rehab. You're not slurring. I don't need speech therapy. We need nothing. He said, you're like, anyway. And so he was toying with doing an MRI or not. And I said, would you do that? Would you do the MRI? Because with my husband, when he had a stroke, that's the only way they really could confirm that that's what it was. And if I had a healing testimony, I wanted to make sure that we had proof beyond a doubt that that is exactly what had happened. And sure enough, they did the MRI, and the right frontal lobe found a small blood clot that had produced the stroke. Just glory to God.